Hi there. Today we're going to explore the plot of the 2015 film, Kept Woman. The loving couple, Evan and Jessica, return home and are horrified to discover that their apartment has been robbed. Suddenly, a criminal appears from around the corner and takes the couple's wallet, handbag, and wedding rings. Evan's friend, a police officer named Tyler, arrives at the scene and explains that such incidents often happen in this neighborhood, and the chances of finding the thief are slim. That same night, Jess decides it's time to move. Soon, the couple settles into a house in the suburbs. On the very same day, a man dressed in a 1950s style comes to introduce himself. He presents himself as their neighbor, a university lecturer named Simon. The next morning, Evan goes to work, while Jessica stays at home. Instead of working on her design project, she spends the day chatting with her friend, an amateur detective named Oscar, about yet another unsolved case. When Evan comes back, he realizes what his fiancée has been doing all day and gets upset, because if Jess keeps getting distracted by other people's stories, they won't be able to manage the mortgage payments for the house. The girl tries to get back to work but notices Simon's car leaving. She runs up, thanks him for the wine, and points out that it must be from his cellar since the bottle was dusty. Jessica invites the man over for dinner on Thursday. At dinner, Evan compliments Simon's excellent wine, but the neighbor suddenly falls silent, focusing all his attention on the hostess, who is dressed in a bright retro outfit. During the conversation, he admits that he is old-fashioned, and that in his family, traditional values were always respected. The man should earn money, the wife should take care of the home. He also shares that he once had a fiancée, who eventually left him for another man. Now he lives alone. Evan shifts the topic and says that his wife is not only a graphic designer, but also an amateur detective who researches unsolved cases and dreams of writing a book. Simon notes that their new life might provide Jess with a few interesting ideas. Before bed, Jessica shares her suspicion with her husband that Simon smelled of women's perfume, and it seems he might be hiding someone in his house. Meanwhile, the neighbor spies on them through binoculars. The next morning, Jess decides to do some gardening, and seeing Simon, asks him for a shovel. She notices that he brought home far too many groceries for just one person. The neighbor replies that he doesn't like shopping often, and prefers to stock up for a long time. In the evening, Jessica again tells her husband that their neighbor seems strange, but Evan tiredly replies that she's overthinking and suspects everyone around. At that moment, Simon knocks on the door to deliver the same garden shovel, claiming he had only just found it. The next morning, Jessica wakes up to find that Evan, with whom she had quarreled the night before, has already left. She takes the shovel and decides to return it to Simon, but no one answers the door. Peeking through the glass, Jess calls Oscar and tells him about her suspicions regarding their strange neighbor. Meanwhile, Simon reviews a recording from his surveillance cameras, where Jessica is seen approaching his house, and he smiles. Then he calls her and invites her over, promising a surprise. In the house, he shows her a retro dress that he claims he bought especially for her. Turning on the surveillance footage, Simon tells Jessica that she chose this life herself and must stay with him. When the girl tries to protest, the man renders her unconscious. Jessica wakes up in a strange room styled after the 1950s. There she meets a girl named Robin, who tells her, "Now you're home." Jessica tries to find a way out but realizes that she is in a basement where the door can only be opened with a code known to Simon. The only window leads into a concrete chamber with bright daylight lamps. While the new captive unsuccessfully tries to escape, Simon sneaks into her house, packs the girl's belongings into a bag, and smashes the photo of her with Evan. Unexpectedly, Evan himself returns home, but the intruder manages to slip out without being seen. Simon goes down into the basement to his captives, and Jessica, seizing the moment, runs upstairs. However, she is stopped by another door with a coded lock. Returning to the room, she looks at a knife, at which point Simon tells her that she could use it against him, but if she does, she will remain locked inside forever. And if the attempt fails, things will become even worse for her. Meanwhile, Evan is unable to reach his fiancée and leaves her a voicemail with apologies. He suddenly finds Jessica's phone lying on her desk. Robin tells the newcomer that she was once the professor's student. After he chose her, she has been living there for several years. She also adds that, in the beginning, she too tried to escape, but it ended badly, and Simon proved to her how much he loved her. At that moment, the man, who had been watching their conversation, comes down into the basement. He gives Jessica a dress and a typewriter so she can finally start writing her book. When she refuses to have dinner, he tells her that he allows her to express her will for the first and last time. Evan comes to the house. Simon leaves the cameras running and goes upstairs to meet the guest. He tells the man that the last time he saw Jessica was in the afternoon, and she seemed upset. Returning home, Evan discovers the broken photo frame and that some of Jessica's belongings are missing. When Tyler arrives, Evan tells him about this and wonders why she would leave without her phone or even a toothbrush. Tyler learns about their quarrel and suggests that perhaps Jessica has someone else. Evan replies that recently she has indeed often been talking over video calls with a man named Oscar. That evening, Jessica notices a burn scar on Robin's back. Robin explains that it was her own fault because at the beginning she had tried to escape, even though Simon had warned her. Later, however, Robin comes to the newcomer and tells her that she is not alone. The next morning, Evan and Tyler visit Oscar. He explains that Jessica had told him about her fight with her fiancé and also mentioned her strange neighbor Simon. The friends head over to him. The neighbor repeats what he had already said earlier and adds that Jessica wasn't wrong to suspect him. In fact, he really is in a relationship with one of his former students. Meanwhile, Jessica realizes that the room is bugged and quietly tries to convince Robin that they need to escape. Robin begins to panic, but at that moment Simon enters and asks Jessica to write down her email address and password. The girl has no choice but to comply. Shortly afterward, Evan receives an email from her account saying that she is leaving him for another man. Simon tells his captive that it was he who broke off the engagement on her behalf, and when the girl calls him dangerous, he nearly injures her hand. Then he orders Robin to do Jessica's hair and makeup for dinner. This time, the host forces Jessica to cook herself, and to emphasize traditional values, he hands her a large knife to carve the meat. The girl obediently follows the task, but then suddenly hits the man with a frying pan. Simon regains consciousness tied to a chair. Jessica demands a confession and promises to make him tell the truth. However, the man insists that he would rather die since he cannot betray his family. Unexpectedly, Robin attacks Jess. While the two women struggle, Simon manages to free himself. At night, Robin tells Jessica that she actually saved her. Otherwise, she would have shared the fate of Megan, a girl who lived there before her. She could not learn to love Simon, and he forced Robin to make a terrible choice. Simon invites Evan over, where, over a bottle of beer, he talks with him about women, showing Jessica through the camera that at any moment he could hurt her fiancé. Later, he warns the girl that if she tries to escape and disobey, he will carry out his threat. At the same time, Evan, in anger, gets rid of everything that reminds him of Jessica, while Simon tries to prove to his captive that now she belongs only to him. 2 months pass since Jessica's disappearance. Evan puts the house up for sale. Meanwhile, Robin grows increasingly jealous and feels that Simon is paying more and more attention to the new captive. At night, Robin tries to convince the man that Jess still loves her fiancé and is planning an escape. Enraged, Simon summons them both into the hallway and declares that lying is the one thing he will never forgive. After that, he punishes Robin and orders the terrified Jessica to return to her room and turn the music louder. But even the loud sounds cannot drown out what happens behind the wall. The next day, Tyler receives an unexpected call from Oscar. He reveals that in every university where Simon worked, female students went missing. The last time he was even interrogated in the case of Megan, but no evidence was found, and he simply resigned. In the evening, the police visit the professor, telling him everything they know about him. Simon realizes that Tyler has become dangerous for him, and after the incident decides to get rid of the witness. He stages an attack, leaving the body far from home. Jessica, in order to calm him, says that he did the right thing, since she supposedly doesn't want to be found. Simon is thrown off by these words, and the girl asks him to give her a chance to prove her loyalty. Soon, Evan manages to sell the house and he says goodbye to his neighbor. After that, Simon allows Jessica to come upstairs with him for the first time. He leaves the girl standing in front of the door while he holds a hidden weapon behind his back, testing her reaction. To his surprise, Jessica only smiles and stays where she is. Simon calls the girl to him and shows her that Evan has indeed sold the house and will soon be leaving for the mountains. Jess shows no emotion, merely saying that she wants to give her former fiancé a farewell gift. Then the man suggests sending the neighbor a bottle of wine he once liked. Overjoyed, Simon embraces the girl. He brings the wine to Evan, but the latter notices traces of lipstick on the collar of his shirt. In the morning, Jessica tells a satisfied Simon, after spending the night together, that she wants to cook something special, for example, a vegetable pie. At that moment, Oscar calls, having learned about Tyler's death, and tries to tell Evan about it. Suspecting the neighbor, Evan breaks into his house just as Jess is having lunch with Simon at an improvised picnic. Simon tells his beloved that they will simply wait until Evan leaves, but he catches the smell of the pie which only Jessica used to make and begins shouting that he will find her. Simon realizes he has been deceived and rushes upstairs, threatening the girl with severe punishment. Meanwhile, Jessica rushes to the door with the coded lock, on which his fingerprints remain. A fierce fight breaks out between the men. The lock refuses to open for a long time, and at the moment when Simon is about to deliver the final blow, Jessica throws herself at him. He pushes her away, but she manages to blind him and knock him out with a fire extinguisher. A year passes. Evan, together with his wife, comes to Simon's trial. The stunned man hears Jessica thanking him for not breaking her and saying she only wants him to spend the rest of his life in a cage. In reality, she came to tell him that she turned out to be stronger. As a farewell, the girl leaves him her book entitled The Captive. Left alone, Simon gently touches the portrait on the cover, realizing his defeat. Thus ends this chilling story. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this recap, give it a like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.